China is opening its first overseas military base in one of the world's most strategic locations. The base will be in Djibouti, Africa, which sits on the Horn of Africa and overlooks a main shipping lane for oil from the Middle East. The small African nation already houses military bases operated by the US, Japan, France, and others. The base is seen as a next step in China's investment in Africa, as well as its push to expand and modernize its military. Chinese ships headed for the new base on Tuesday. So far, there's no word on when the base will become operational.
The United States has reportedly deployed long-range Patriot missiles in Lithuania as part of nearly 2 weeks of military exercises in the region. Lithuania's defense ministry calls it the first time the anti-aircraft missiles have been deployed in the tiny Baltic state. Lithuania, which used to be part of the Soviet Union, borders Kaliningrad, a Russian military exclave at the center of rising tensions between Moscow and the West. The Lithuanian Defense Ministry statement says the Patriot missile deployment, quote, demonstrates the steadfast U.S. commitment to the security of Lithuania. The statement indicates Exercise Tobruk Legacy 2017 began July 11th and runs through July 22nd. Some 500 soldiers from Lithuania, the U.S., the U.K., Latvia, and Poland will take part in the Lithuanian exercises. Meanwhile, the Associated Press reports the NATO allies are deploying about 4,000 troops to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland in order to counter Russia's presence in the region.
President Donald Trump sought out a friendly face in the media Wednesday. The president was interviewed in the White House by Pat Robertson. The 87-year-old is the founder of the Christian Broadcasting Network. It was Trump's first non-Fox News Channel interview in several weeks.
We had a good meeting. It was a face-to-face meeting. It was a long meeting. It was 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yeah. Everyone was surprised by the amount of time, but that was a good thing, not a bad thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we got along very well, and I think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
you know, people said, oh, they shouldn't get along. Well, who are the people that are saying that? I think we got along very, very well. We're a tremendously powerful nuclear power, and so are they.
That's right.
It doesn't make sense not to have some kind of a relationship. I think we had an excellent meeting. One thing we did is we have a ceasefire in a major part of Syria where there was tremendous bedlam and tremendous killing. And by the way, this is now 4 days. The ceasefire is held for 4 days. Those ceasefires haven't held at all. That's because President Putin and President Trump made the deal, and it's held. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe as we're speaking, they start shooting again. But this has held, unlike all of the other ceasefires that didn't mean anything.
Let's talk Syria first.
Sure.
This ceasefire. The president is applauding it. Your thoughts? Is this somewhat of a breakthrough?
It could be if it holds. And let's remember, we have a lot of people, if you will, in the deep state that would like us to sabotage this thing. I think the significance is the area of the country it's in. It's in southwest Syria. That means it's near the Golan Heights. The Americans would not have agreed to this without an Israeli buy-in. And I don't think the Russians would have agreed to it without a Syrian and Iranian buy-in. So if you start to get some progress where all the main players who have a thumb in the pie are beginning to make some progress on trying to settle down the war, stop the violence. That could be a very good thing.
The president's top diplomat is still in the Middle East tonight, trying to get American allies to end their standoff.
The newly ascended Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, holds his first formal meeting with an American official, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Secretary Tillerson arrives in Saudi Arabia, again, trying to resolve a weeks-long conflict between critical U.S. security allies.
And I appreciate the joint interest that we share, our two countries, our mutual interest here in terms of security, stability for the region. It's a very important, strong partnership between the United States and Saudi Arabia.
The Secretary has said the crisis is hindering military operations. The largest U.S. military base in the region is in Qatar. It hosts more than 10,000 American service members and launches airstrikes against ISIS targets.
I think it's very good news that the American Secretary of State has decided to get involved in this crisis. Kuwait might be okay as a mediator, but nobody in this region has the kind of credibility, power, and relationships with all of the parties that the United States has.
The Pentagon says the crisis is affecting long-term planning, though base operations continue unhindered. The U.S. also has a substantial military or intelligence sharing relationship with the Arab nations opposing Qatar.
They're firing inward at each other. I think it just weakens the coalition, and it leads Iran to believe that it can continue to press and push because the enemy is not unified, and they've got a more open path to pursue their expansionist ambitions.
In the ultimate sign of normalizing ties between Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Israeli Communications Minister Ayaub Ka'ara is now attempting to broker a deal for direct flights from Tel Aviv to the Muslim holy city of Mecca. As the fifth pillar of Islam, Muslims around the world are obligated to make the pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in their lifetime. The journey, or Hajj, for Israelis can be quite complicated, though. The thousands of Muslim Israelis attempting the trip would have to take buses across both Jordan and Saudi Arabia for a total of 1,350 kilometers, or 850 miles. Some Muslims during Ramadan are also permitted to enter Saudi Arabia from Israel, but they too must first fly to Jordan. So the good and bad news about this deal is that, as Minister Ka'ala says, the Saudis and Jordanians are, quote, ready to do it, but it's very sensitive and it's still a matter of negotiation. One thing is for sure, though, major steps towards positive relations are continuing to be made at all times. Israeli officials have been hinting at an Israeli-Saudi peace for a long time now, even insinuating that the Saudis might play a role in the Middle East peace process. Even Saudi Arabia's foreign minister said that he is optimistic that a peace deal can be reached within a year.
The next total solar eclipse is August 21st. The moon will come between the sun and the earth, completely blocking the sun. This is pretty rare. The last time a total eclipse could be seen from the contiguous United States was in 1979. The path of the upcoming eclipse starts in Oregon and ends in South Carolina. Staring directly at the sun is never a good idea. Unless the sun's totally blocked out, always wear eye protection when viewing an eclipse. After August, the next total solar eclipse in the U.S. can be seen in 2024.
The main characters in the new CBS series Salvation have just 6 months to save humanity from an asteroid making its way to Earth. They're not superheroes, just ordinary people, including a grad student played by actor Charlie Rowe. Jamie Wax recently caught up with Rowe at the series premiere.
NASA discovered an asteroid, Samson. Samson has the potential to collide with Earth in 186 days.
Tell me about Salvation. It's one of these great 13-part limited series. What is it like?
An asteroid is 6 months away from colliding with Earth, and it's sort of about how the US government deals with that situation, how they keep it from the public.
close to North Korea in the early hours of this morning with a powerful 5.8 magnitude quake rattling the waters off the country's eastern coast. Any seismic activity north of the border can make us quite nervous given the regime's history of underground nuclear bomb tests. But U.S. officials say this was a natural earthquake, not the result of a nuclear test. It was also way out at sea, nowhere near the North's test site, and its epicenter was some 175 kilometers off North Korea's eastern coast in the East Sea, striking at a depth of nearly 540 kilometers. Last September, North Korea's fifth nuclear test triggered a 5.0 magnitude earthquake at the test site at Punggye.
A group of faith leaders are lifting the president up in prayer. Monday, Tony Perkins, Pastor John Hagee, Michelle Bachmann, and many others gathered to pray for President Trump. Johnny Moore, former senior vice president at Liberty University, posted pictures of the prayer time Tuesday and says it was more than just a photo op, saying it, quote, shows a substantive relationship between the evangelical community and this administration. He added faith leaders are enjoying frequent access to officials in the Trump administration.
For the first time, a member of Congress has filed articles of impeachment against President Donald Trump. Representative Brad Sherman of California filed a resolution to remove Trump from office. He says Trump obstructed justice by interfering with the FBI investigation into potential Russian collusion and firing FBI Director James Comey. The White House dismissed the bill as, quote, utterly and completely ridiculous and a political game at its worst. The word impeachment has resurfaced again and again as the Trump White House has struggled with scandals, but don't expect this motion to come to anything, at least not yet. Republicans control both chambers of Congress, and there's virtually no chance House Speaker Paul Ryan will even bring it up for a vote. Even Democrats reportedly asked Sherman to slow down when he talked about impeachment in the past. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said she wants the Russia investigation to play out before trying to oust Trump. It seems that even Sherman knows this isn't going to work, but he said the bill could serve as a wake-up call to the Trump administration. He wrote, quote, if they actually see articles, perhaps we will see incompetency replaced by care. Perhaps uncontrollable impulses will be controlled, and perhaps the danger our nation faces will be ameliorated.
Something we all want to know, who is opposing the ban on child marriage and why?
Natasha, shockingly, several legislators are opposing this, as well as other civil rights groups, including the American Civil Liberties Union. Also, Planned Parenthood and the Children's Law Center of California are opposing this. Now, the American Civil Liberties Union says, quote, the ban unnecessarily and unduly intrudes on the fundamental right of marriage. So lawmakers who were proposing a minimum age requirement of 18 years old have now removed that language from the proposed bill and instead replaced it with other protections like requiring courts to interview all of the parties involved separately and also requiring family court services to create written reports that will outline any suspected abuse or known abuse, as well as neglect or any type of coercion or threats that they may perceive from family members.
Reuters has reported that the University of California, Los Angeles allowed students to go back to their dormitories and resume activities early on Thursday, hours after a bomb threat forced the evacuation of campus buildings. The school said that emergency operations ended at about 12:15 a.m. Thursday, about 2 hours after a bomb threat was reported at the Sunset Recreation Center. The university's alert system tweeted, "All clear, resume normal activities, please use caution and increase your awareness."
The four biggest cities in Tennessee are now letting guns on their buses due to a new state law, but the change might not be obvious to riders from the vaguely worded rules posted by cities that opposed the law. Transit policy changes in Nashville, Knoxville, and Chattanooga rely on riders to know beforehand, or at least look up on their own, who can carry a gun. Memphis officials are still changing the wording of their policy on guns on buses and in stations, but have started letting permit holders carry their guns. To comply with the law, which took effect July 1st, Nashville changed its transit system's code of conduct, which had banned all weapons, to banning only those that are unauthorized. No mention is made of the new law. The law, which was strongly supported by the National Rifle Association, gives cities and counties a choice. Either they must use metal detectors, hire security guards, and check people's bags at many local facilities, or they must let handgun permit holders bring in their guns. Between 4,500 and 5,600 students use Nashville's free city bus pass program. All public high schoolers and some students in grade 5 through 8 qualify, and the downtown station teams with students when school is in session as police and security guards watch guard. Signs at Nashville's Music City Central bus terminal still say no weapons more than a week after the law took effect, but Metropolitan Transit Authority officials say they're in the process of revising them. If the Trump administration gets its way, U.S. citizens boarding international flights will have to submit to a face scan, a plan privacy advocates call a step towards a surveillance state. The Department of Homeland Security says it's the only way to successfully expand a program that tracks non-immigrant foreigners. They have been required by law since 2004 to submit to biometric identity scans, but to date have only had their fingerprints and photos collected prior to entry. Now, DHS says it's finally ready to implement face scans on departure, aimed mainly at better tracking visa overstays, but also at tightening security. It says it won't keep the face scans of U.S. citizens, but privacy advocates are skeptical and say Homeland Security is overstepping its authority.
The Trump administration has reached its self-imposed quota on refugee admissions for the 2017 fiscal year this week and will dramatically reduce admissions going forward. The quota of 50,000 was initially set by President Donald Trump as part of his travel ban executive order in January. It was shelved for several months as the legality of the order was contested in the U.S. court system. Former President Barack Obama initially set a target of 110,000 refugees for the current fiscal year. That goal was panned by then-candidate Trump.
The Hungarian government has launched a country-wide anti-migrant poster campaign depicting George Soros. The Hungarian-American billionaire's persona is being used by the government, as earlier Soros had called on Hungary to allow more refugees into the country, where anti-migrant sentiments are strong. His call was swiftly dismissed by Viktor Orban's government.
The campaign is reminiscent of Europe's darkest hours.
These billboards evoke sad memories, but also sow hatred and fear.
Here was a kind of awkward situation in Hungary, because what Soros did, he supported all kinds of what we call orange revolutions, which on the surface were very peaceful. But at the end of the day, we saw this blood spilled in Ukraine, blood spilled in Tbilisi and many other places where Soros put his fingers.
There is now a fourth pathway to achieving sainthood within the Catholic Church. In a letter issued Tuesday, Pope Francis announced the new way would recognize people who willingly give up their lives for others. Up until now, the only routes to sainthood were dying for the faith, living a life of heroic Christian values, or having a devout reputation. The Vatican provided some regimented criteria for this new fourth path. First, the person must freely and voluntarily offer up their life in the face of certain death. There must be a connection between the act of charity and the premature death. The individual must have lived a life filled with Christian values and had a holy reputation. And finally, there needs to be a miracle attributed to the person sacrificing their life. The miracle requirement is pretty standard for all candidates for sainthood, though those who are martyred don't need one to be beatified, which is one of the steps towards sainthood. Pope Francis has canonized a total of 850 saints during his 5 years as the head of the Catholic Church.
What happens when a rabbi, a priest, and a Buddhist take psychedelic drugs? Scientists want to find out. 24 religious leaders from a wide range of denominations are part of an experiment currently taking place at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. Scientists are giving participants 2 doses of psilocybin. That's the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. The drug has long been used for its mind-altering properties, and users claim to have experienced going on spiritual journeys, seeing hallucinations, and gaining a distorted sense of time. This experiment aims to find out if such a transcendental experience changes the way religious leaders think and whether they become more confident in their work. A full analysis won't be published for at least another year, but a study member told The Guardian, quote, "So far, everyone incredibly values their experience. They get a greater appreciation for other world religions."
Nevada is dealing with a high-profile emergency, a recreational marijuana shortage. Governor Brian Sandoval has endorsed a statement of emergency for recreational marijuana regulations because the state's dispensaries are quickly running out of weed. This statement of emergency allows officials to decide if they want to adopt an emergency regulation that could ease the shortage. The problem is marijuana distributors. Nevada law requires distributors to apply for and receive a license from the state. But when legal sales began July 1st, the state had 0 licensed pot distributors. But marijuana sales had gotten off to a blazing start. The Nevada Dispensary Association estimated legal recreational marijuana sales were between $3 million and $5 million in the first weekend alone. The state currently has 47 licensed retail marijuana stores, but they're running out of inventory fast. The statement of emergency notes that lack of product could force businesses to close. That would mean people lose their jobs and the state loses out on a lot of revenue. The Nevada Tax Commission is scheduled to vote on the emergency regulation Thursday.
Iraqi security forces have released videos of ISIL fighters surrendering in Mosul's old city 36 hours after Baghdad Monday declared the city liberated. Now, Iraqi forces cornered and battled with ISIL militants holding out in the old city, and the fighters lost morale since their leader's death was confirmed. The surrender of these last fighters symbolizes the terrorist group's biggest defeat since its lightning sweep through northern Iraq 3 years ago, but the city of Mosul still needs to recover from 9 months of urban combat, and refugees will need time to rebuild their home.
Intense fighting broke out in Mosul again just days after Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi declared victory over ISIS in the city. Iraqi forces clashed with ISIS fighters in areas of western Mosul Wednesday, July 12th. Gunfire erupted on the ground and airstrikes caused plumes of smoke to rise in the air above western Mosul. One Mosul resident told Reuters, quote, "We still live in an atmosphere of war despite the victory announcement." An Iraqi military official told Reuters the fighting is a result of, quote, clearing operations against ISIS fighters remaining in the city.
In Nigeria, at least 19 people have been killed in a string of suicide bombings. 4 explosions hit members of a civilian self-defense force in the northeastern city of Maiduguri. Authorities have blamed Boko Haram for the attacks. Last year, the Nigerian government declared the terrorist group had been crushed, but they continue to carry out suicide bombings and raids in Nigeria's northeast.
The Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has called on troops to finish the battle against the ISIL-linked militants in the south of the country. Duterte said intensified fighting was going on against terrorists who have gained funding from drug sales, and he promised to rebuild the city of Marawi when the area is cleared out. Duterte earlier said he needed 15 more days to defeat the militants, and more than 500 people have been killed, including nearly 400 militants, 90 soldiers and 40 civilians. And on Wednesday, a government airstrike mistakenly killed 2 soldiers, the second such deadly accident since the campaign started in May.
Deadly violence and now a deadly disease. There are growing fears of a cholera epidemic in the city of Goma. That's the capital city of North Kivu province in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
The United Nations has once again voiced concern over the dire humanitarian situation in Yemen amid growing cholera outbreak across the war-torn country.
7 million people, including 2.3 million malnourished children, of whom 500,000 are severely malnourished, under the age of 5, are on the cusp of famine, vulnerable to disease and ultimately at risk of a slow and painful death. Nearly 16 million people do not have access to adequate water, sanitation and hygiene.
Global inequality is severely reflected by the access to safe water, as about 3 out of 10 people worldwide, or more than 2 billion people, currently don't have the access to safe water at home. This is according to a new report jointly released by the World Health Organization and UNICEF this week, which presents the first global assessment of the world's drinking water and sanitation problems. The paper also suggested that some 4.5 billion people worldwide still do not have safely managed sanitation, and around half of them don't even have basic sanitation services.
America Strong, the baby born prematurely reunited with mom and dad. And when it's a baby hippo, the whole city celebrates. Here's David Ray.
Believe it or not, this is what a premature baby hippo looks like. Fiona was 29 pounds when she was born at the Cincinnati Zoo, but that's about half what baby hippos normally weigh. So for the past 6 months, Fiona has been chomping along at the hippo equivalent of the preemie ward, getting lots of tender, loving care. Until today, back in the deep end, reunited with Mom and Dad. Little Fiona even managed the hippo equivalent of a piggyback. Hip, hip, hooray! These three finally ready for their first family portrait.